All right, welcome to the Young Turks, everybody. Cenk Ugranic sparing with you guys, the online news show. So we've got a great number of things happening today. So I need you to buckle up and brace for impact. So we're gonna do a 2-hour show today. On that show, of course, we're gonna have the latest, what's happening in Gaza has officially been labeled a genocide. We're gonna get to that in a little bit. We have a possible motive for the shooter. We have some of the evidence that has come out about that. We'll have that for you in a little bit. And so much more, including, I hope, the Democrat on Democrat crime a little bit later in the program. So tonight I'll also be on News Nation with Chris Cuomo debating the Israel issue. Is it a genocide or not? That's at 8 o'clock on News Nation. I'm also going to do a special live show with Tucker Carlson tonight, and he's going to start at 8 o'clock. I'll join him. This is Eastern, probably around 8:45 or so. But check it out when you get a chance. Right after the bonus episode, go over there and you can check it out. Tucker Carlson Network. It's going to be him doing a monologue, then Megyn Kelly, then me, then Scott Adams, and then a fryer, an actual fryer.
Like a French fryer?
No.
Oh, no. The other kind of fryer. Okay, got
yes.
it. No, okay.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so definitely do not miss the bonus episode because it's going to be lit. Plus, if you do want to check out what Cenk is up to, he's not going to be on until after the bonus episode.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly right. And so we're moving Operation Joy to Wednesday, so don't worry, we're going to do that for you guys tonight. And after all of that is done, the real deal, the most important thing today, on Old School, Michael and I will have an epic Americana show.
Oh my God.
What is the most American thing in the world? And maybe we'll do brackets, but we're gonna need your participation. So if you're a member, check out Old School tonight. And that's of course at 9:30 tonight. So lots of Young Turks programming and otherwise. Check out Anna on Piers Morgan on tyt.com/press. All of our appearances are on there as well. So let's get started.
All right, we got a lot to get to, a lot of huge stories today, but I wanted to begin with this.
Through the night, Israel's air assault on Gaza City intensified still further as its ground forces readied to move in. By Israel's own estimates, as many as 650,000 Palestinians remain in the city. This morning, rescue efforts underway to recover survivors from new ruins. This block, home to dozens of people, hit at 1 a.m. Rescue workers find Mara al-Haddad trapped. Over 10 long hours, they work to free her leg.
Well, luckily they did free her leg, but she lost 2 of her friends as a result of that Israeli airstrike. And as Israel carries out its deadly ground offensive in Gaza City, forcing thousands of Palestinians to flee, the UN Commission investigating Israel's conduct in Gaza has declared that they are in fact committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. So there was the Organization of Genocide Scholars who previously came out and declared that Israel was carrying out genocide. Now we have the UN Commission doing the same. And here's why, according to reporting from Channel 4 News in the UK.
Genocide, as defined in the Convention of 1948, is the crime committed with the specific intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial or religious group. The Commission says Israel has committed 4 such genocidal acts. Killing members of the group through targeting civilians and the deliberate infliction of conditions of life that caused their deaths, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group through direct attacks against civilians, mistreatment of detainees, forced displacement and environmental destruction, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, including blocking essential aid, food, water, electricity and fuel, and finding that starvation had been used as a weapon, and imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group through the attack on Gaza's largest fertility clinic, reportedly destroying around 4,000 embryos.
So not only are pregnant women getting killed, not only are hospitals being destroyed where it's nearly impossible for a woman, or actually is at this point impossible for a Palestinian woman to safely deliver a baby. The fertility clinic was targeted and destroyed by Israel as well. Now, this commission had actually put out a report earlier that found Israel had committed war crimes against humanity. In fact, in March, for example, it accused Israel of targeting hospitals and other health facilities in genocidal acts intended to prevent births. But they didn't go as far as to accuse Israel of actually carrying out a full-blown genocide. Obviously, things have changed, and the latest report the commission put out says that Israel's actions in Gaza constituted genocide under the 1948 Genocide Convention, writing that Israeli authorities were aware of the high probability that their military operations, their imposition of a total siege, including the blocking of humanitarian aid into Gaza and the destruction of housing and of health systems and facilities, would lead to the physical destruction of Palestinians in whole or in part in Gaza. Cenk.
Yeah, so they concluded that the actions of Israel were both expansive, significant damage done here, obviously to say the least, and deliberate. And that is important for a genocide. It was done intentionally. So among the overwhelming evidence that they had were targeting children. They were shocked at the number of head and chest shots for kids in Gaza. So that's snipers hitting them on purpose and killing children, young children. So number two was the utter destruction of almost all the facilities in Gaza. Almost all the hospitals have been destroyed. All the universities have been destroyed. Even when they're absolutely empty, IDF has complete control over them. They say, well, maybe Hamas might come back later at an undisclosed time. So here they're concluding, no, they're doing it to absolutely destroy and annihilate all of Gaza, as their leaders have said on the record. There's several cabinet ministers said, we are going for total annihilation. And then not only do you see them saying that, but then you see them doing it, right? All of the universities and educational things have been wiped out, fertility clinics wiped out, everything wiped out, right? So the only thing left now is the Israeli side. And so that's where it gets interesting. So the uninteresting part is Israel's claim is, oh, everybody's biased against us.
Yeah, this is fake. This is an anti-Semitic attack.
Of course, but we all knew that, right? And at this point, I'm not even bothered by it anymore. Now they seem like a joke, right? Like a very sick, tragic joke, right? So, oh, the facts are anti-Semitic. If you weren't anti-Semitic, you would let us kill more Palestinian children with sniper shots and destroy life as we know it in Gaza.
That is what they're communicating.
Like,
Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, and it's absurd. There's no point in debating it anymore. We're 2 years into a genocide. Everyone on planet Earth knows it's a genocide. The UN took forever to get there because of enormous political power that Israel has. You better not call it a genocide. You better not call it a genocide. Well, they did anyway, right? So now the question is, can Israel pull off completing a genocide with the whole world watching?
Yeah, it appears that is the case.
Yeah.
That is the case because here in America, our government will aid and abet anything and everything the Israeli government wants to carry out, including genocide. And at the same time, we also unfortunately have, American citizens in this country who identify as, pro-Israeli Zionists, who will viciously go after anyone who has a conscience and speaks out against the unmitigated slaughter taking place in Gaza right now. They will intimidate them, they will go after their employers. They will essentially make it appear as though anyone who sees what's happening for what it is, okay, brutality, the butchering of children, the butchering of innocent people, those people get labeled as the bad guys. They get labeled as the bad guys. People get fired from their jobs as a result of this.
Yeah, so there's 3 entities basically left against the entire planet. Right, so the planet sees the genocide. Israel can do any kind of propaganda that they want, and they often talk about. And in fact, later in the show, we're gonna have a story of the former head of the IDF saying, the lawyers we have never stop us from doing anything. The only thing that they ask for is that we follow some guidelines so they could do better marketing for what Israel's doing in Gaza. Right? So there's not even an attempt at being legal here. It's all marketing, right? So that's why the rest of the planet, we all have eyes and ears to see what they've done. Now, the only 3 groups left on Israel's side is Israel's hard right wing, and some of the Israeli citizens are dead set against this, and tons of Israelis, authors, composers, actors, and the list goes on and on, are now speaking out and going, no, 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 we have to end this genocide. This is sick. This is not what Israel should stand for. Okay, so you've got the hard right-wing government of Israel. You've got the hard right-wing bullies inside America and Western countries whose job is to betray the countries they're in and bully the citizens of those countries on behalf of a foreign government, Israel, right? So that's an obvious group. Then the second group is Western leaders, and the third group is Western media. So those are the only people left on Israel's side. The rest of the world agrees this is one of the worst genocides we've ever seen. It's not because Israel's doing it, that's the problem. It's a problem whether Israel is doing it or another country is doing it. So can in modern world, can a country just with controlling Western leaders and media be able to pull off a genocide and totally get away with it? Is the entire world population irrelevant? So that is a hell of a question. That's the question that Israel's asking now. Can we get the entire world to shut up and follow our orders and be good little boys and girls and allow us to do this genocide, move the Palestinians out, slaughter them and move them, and then take Gaza and take West Bank and do it right in front of your eyes in the modern world? And I don't know the answer to that.
But don't hate Israelis though, mean the Israeli government. Don't hate the Israeli government, don't hate the IDF for doing that. In front of everybody, right? It's a live streamed genocide. But don't speak out about it. That would be wrong.
No, yeah, I'm past it today. Maybe I'll get back to it being angry about it tomorrow, right? But guys, at this point, the people defending Israel are only damaging themselves. This is going in history books.
They're loathsome people.
Yeah, and they're going to go and be featured in a museum. By the way, the good guys are also going to be featured in museums. So I saw an Israeli composer today that took a lot of heat, and he just stopped and said, no, what we're doing is atrocious, and we cannot keep doing this. And we've shown you Holocaust survivors, former Israeli prime ministers, etc. People going, no, 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 this isn't what Israel was supposed to be. So the folks who are now supporting the genocide are not even just on the Israeli side. They're literally on the side of being pro-genocide.
Yeah.
And so that's not a winning position and never will be. And they'll carry that moral stain with them for the rest of their lives. So the only question is, can we accumulate enough power to stop them? That's the only question.
Well, let's move on to some other news today because Kash Patel, our FBI director, was testifying before the Senate, and I want to tell you what they were discussing.
You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
That was our FBI director, Kash Patel, treating us all as if we're idiots, totally stupid, and unaware of the fact that Epstein absolutely did traffic young girls to other powerful individuals. We know that through testimony. We know that because, the victim speaking out about it. So we'll get to all those details, including this huge spat that Patel had with Senator Adam Schiff, a Democrat. But before we get to that, let me give you some more details about this exchange and what's going on. So today, during a 4.5-hour hearing in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Kash Patel alleged that there's no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked his victims to other men. Now, after the exchange you just watched, Senator John Kennedy urged Patel to release as much information as he possibly could because, as he put it, this issue is not gonna go away. Patel agreed, but then blamed someone else for the lack of documentation that we've received. He blamed US Attorney Alex Acosta's original investigation into and agreement with Epstein for the limited amount of information in the current Epstein files. Let's take a look at him making that argument.
What exists in the Epstein case files was a direct result of the limited search warrants from 2006 and 2007, which hamstrung future investigations because of the non-prosecution agreement. And multiple administrations had the opportunity to look at the entirety of that case file and recommend prosecutions against anyone that was trafficked under Mr. Epstein and anyone that participated in that trafficking. And the only person to bring charges was the prior administration against Mr. Epstein. Now, I am not saying that others were not trafficked and others were not involved. What I am telling you is that based on the information we have released all credible information, and the information that the Department of Justice and the FBI never releases is information on investigations that are not credible. And I know that's not going to satisfy many people. But if they wanted it done right, then the investigation from its origination should have been done right, and he should not have been given a get-out-of-jail-free card to do jail on the weekends for 12 hours a day, and he should have been investigated fully for the entirety of his crime and criminal enterprise, not just from 1997 to 2001.
But again, as Senator Kennedy mentioned, we do absolutely have the testimony of multiple Epstein victims who claimed that they were in fact trafficked to other men. So, and by the way, let me just pause for a second. Wasn't the result of Alex Acosta's prosecution into Jeffrey Epstein, the one charge that Jeffrey Epstein was found guilty of, was trafficking women? It was a prostitution charge, right?
Yeah, so it was soliciting prostitution. So you could argue that that's not necessarily trafficking.
Got it, okay.
Okay, and of course they weren't prostitutes, they were underage girls.
Yes.
But yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not calling them, sex workers or anything like that. Obviously, if you're underage, you cannot consent to that. That's rape. Now, in one court filing, an accuser identified as Jane Doe, number 3, alleges that she was trafficked by Epstein for sexual purposes to many other powerful men, including numerous prominent American politicians, powerful business executives, foreign presidents, a well-known prime minister, and other world leaders. Now, it is believed that Jane Doe number 3 is Virginia Giuffre, who died earlier this year. Now, she said in a deposition that at different times she was directed to have sex with Britain's Prince Andrew, another prince, the unnamed owner of a large hotel chain, and Glenn Dubin, a billionaire hedge fund manager, according to a transcript. And in addition to that, in a separate sworn deposition or depositions, alleged victim Sarah Ransom said Epstein was transparent about trafficking girls to visitors who came to his home in New York City and his private island in the Virgin Islands. So she said, and I'm gonna quote her, there were various buildings around the island, like little shelter things, where him and his guests used to have sex with the girls, like beds set up for instant sexual entertainment. At his townhouse in New York, I was also lent out by him to his friends and associates to have sex. So we'll get back to the hearing and more of what Kash Patel has to say, but I'm curious what you think about the arguments that Patel made to Senator Kennedy.
They sound Israeli, and here's what I mean by that. Not that Epstein is related to Israel, that's a separate question, right? I mean, they sound so absurd in their denial that it sounds like the Israeli government. No one has been hurt in Gaza. What? We see the whole thing, right? So no one has been trafficked. What do you mean? There's over 1,000 girls who've been trafficked.
So he doesn't say that exactly, right? Like I want to be fair.
I'm getting to that.
Okay,
I'm getting
go
to
ahead.
That. So in the beginning, he says we have no credible evidence of anyone who's been trafficked. I'm like, what? What are you saying? That's so demonstrably false, right? So then, if you notice, he changes it to, I'm not saying others were not trafficked. Well, I thought that is what you said in the earlier clip. Okay, now you're clarifying, yeah, they were trafficked, but they were trafficked by ghosts, by no one. So he says, no. It's just that we don't have good enough evidence anymore that we could charge anyone because of how badly it was bungled before. Okay, so, and he was giving such a light sentence and it was an outrage, etc. Okay, so did you investigate that? Why was he given such a light sentence? Because it's absurd, right? Why was the guy who gave him the light sentence, why did he say that he was told to do that by intelligence agencies? Why was he then appointed labor secretary under Donald Trump after doing one of the most egregious acts of non-prosecution in American history? Why was he rewarded for that act seemingly by President Trump, who you work for now? So if his bottom line is, we're definitely not going to prosecute anyone. He almost referred to the perpetrators as the victims. He was like, well, there are people who we don't want to put out unfair charges.
Right.
How about you put out fair charges?
Right.
And guys, who are we kidding? There was video cameras in every room. So every denial is 100% absurd, not 99%. They're on tape. If you wanted to prosecute them, you could prosecute them. You're choosing not to. They're on tape.
But Cenk, the previous administrations didn't prosecute them.
Okay, but think about that. I know
that's free to go.
Yeah, so that's exactly the other thing I wrote down, Anna, in my notes, which is, so wait, you're telling me all of the administrations are in cahoots on making sure that Epstein's clients are not prosecuted, and that's a defense? How's that a defense? You're saying, oh yeah, I'm being just like all the other administrations, just like our beloved Biden, our beloved Obama, and Trump won. And we all are crooks and are choosing not to prosecute presumably hundreds of guys who raped American girls. Well, then you're gonna have to explain to us why you're choosing to do that.
That's right.
And he's not. All he's doing is whataboutism. What about Biden? What about Acosta? What about this? Oh yeah, we're not gonna prosecute anyone. Okay, that's what I thought. You're guilty. You're totally, Kash Patel is guilty. He is totally part of the cover up now. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. I don't care where his eyes are pointing. He is there pointing to the fact that he is not prosecuting the guilty, period. And he will never recover from that.
So let's get back to the hearing, because soon after that exchange with Senator Kennedy, Democratic Senator Adam Schiff weighs in and quoted what Patel told Kennedy back to him and hammered him about exactly what he meant. Let's take a look.
Is it your testimony today that in all the Epstein files, that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked no one to anyone but himself? Is that your testimony, Mr.
I never
Patel?
said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic anyone else.
Did he traffic any young woman to someone other than himself? That was Mr. Kennedy's question,
And I
Senator Kennedy's
said
question.
the information that 3 administrations have had access to have made determinations that there are no investigative leads that were credible to prosecute and investigate any others.
There are victims like Virginia Giuffre who have testified otherwise, who have said otherwise. And you're telling the American people today that the Epstein list is a single name and it's Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we're to believe?
That's not what I'm saying. That's what you're saying.
Okay, so after that, Schiff asked Patel about the mysterious transfer of Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, to a minimum security prison camp after she had her interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Patel claimed that the decision was entirely made by the Bureau of Prisons. And that's when things really started to go haywire. Take a look.
The Bureau of Prisons decided on their own, without any consultation with Blanche or anyone else, that they were gonna suddenly, after this interview, completely unrelated to this interview, completely unrelated to anything she said, move her to a prison not suitable for a sex offender. You want the American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No, I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of
you're
inmates.
not in the weeds?
What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Good boy, Kash, good boy. Trump is very proud of you. Okay, maybe he'll keep you as FBI director. There's whispers, rumors about how you might be pushed out because of how poorly you handled the investigation into Charlie Kirk's murder. But that was amazing, that was incredible. I mean, the way that he is totally downplaying the lack of justice, considering the reality that there were other co-conspirators, other men involved, is amazing when you compare what he's saying right there to what he was saying prior to entering the administration. Because prior to entering the administration, if you guys can remember, Kash Patel was a big hero for the American people. He was gonna fight like hell to get the Epstein files released. But something happened following Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the United States, his meeting with Donald Trump. Donald Trump changed entirely, especially when it comes to his stance on carrying out anything and everything Israel wants to do. He would push back a little bit before, now he doesn't push back at all. And any notion of the Epstein files getting released, I mean, you can't even have a conversation about that with members of the Trump administration. He doesn't even care about those supporters. He doesn't want their support.
Yeah.
What is Trump hiding?
Yeah, well, he's definitely hiding something. I genuinely don't know if he was a client or not, but what are they hiding is the most important question.
Right.
Because it's not a question whether they're hiding something. I mean, this is all like 1984 level propaganda. I mean, George Orwell was genius of geniuses. So we're supposed to ignore our lying eyes? They have it on video. There were over 1,000 girls who were raped and sexually molested. There's potentially hundreds of guys. They're super powerful, princes and giant Wall Street bankers, some politicians, the former prime minister of Israel. The list goes on and on. And they're telling us, nope, because of previous administrations, our eyes don't work. Come on. Okay, previous administrations bungled this, and that's why when I watch the video and it's super clear who's on it, and it's super clear who did the raping, instantly my ears stopped working too because of Biden and because of Adam Schiff. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of Adam Schiff, but what's with the bag of squirrels, right? So why did you move Ghislaine Maxwell? You're a buffoon. I'm not gonna let you talk. Okay, so this is now turned into a Piers Morgan show. And Kash Patel just talking over Adam Schiff because it got uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So wait, did you catch it though right before he started screaming? He said, I can't be in the weeds on all these decisions on moving Ghislaine Maxwell. That's in the weeds?
There's a disgusting pedophile groomer that's now in a low security prison that's much more luxurious, so she can be much more comfortable. And that happened immediately after she cleared the president's name as, not being a client, not being in the Epstein files at all. Fascinating, really interesting.
She's probably the most notorious child sex trafficker in American history, along with Epstein. She's certainly the biggest groomer in American history. And you moved her to the lowest security prison, one that's considered a country club, that's what they call it. And by the way, moving anyone convicted of child sex trafficking to a minimum security prison requires overrides. It's not a thing you could do without asking your superiors. It's not a thing, Sally filled out the wrong paperwork. We took the biggest groomer in American history and accidentally moved her to a country club. And no one above us knows. No, brother, all of this is patently absurd. And the good news, guys, and I'm elated to say this. Look, it's not uniform, it's not 100%, but the country's starting to get united on this issue, Epstein files. Maybe we can build off of it, maybe we can't build off of it. But the right wing is absolutely vicious to Kash Patel now. And he was one of them, he liked it. So do I see some MAGA guys still going, no, I bet there are no clients at all. I believe everything Donald Trump and Kash Patel say. Yeah, but honestly, not that many. So the right wing's at least as mad as the left wing is at Kash Patel and these obvious lies. And mainly what he's doing in terms of politics now is he's saying to the world, I think MAGA's super stupid and I could tell him anything. I just couldn't find any clients. It was all Biden's fault, even though I'm in charge. Ghislaine Maxwell got moved. I didn't even know, that's so in the weeds. And he thinks MAGA's gonna go, Kash said it, so it must be true. We're now dogs of Kash Patel. Good luck with that strategy. It's not working, and I don't think it's ever gonna work. So no question, Kash Patel is guilty. And of course, the guy ordering it is Donald Trump.
Well, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the latest developments in regard to the individual who shot and killed Charlie Kirk. He did have his first appearance in court today. We'll show you video from that and more. Don't miss it.
right, so let's go to Super Chat first. Grizz, my homie from the street, says, for Trump, today's hearings get Patel under oath saying no other clients. This allows for him to now be fired by Trump, ensuring Patel's silence in the future, or be jailed for lying to Congress today. Look, brother, I don't know what their play is, right? But other than the dumbest cover up in the world with like no real excuse. Maybe you're right, maybe you're not, but no matter what, Kash Patel's never gonna recover from this. The Breaker Wall says, guess Thomas Massey was just making stuff up about John Paulson's involvement with Epstein. Why did Massey never get sued for defamation?
That is a great question.
That's right. And brother, great job. And whenever you see someone saying something like that, and it happens a lot with Candace Owens, I always think, are they gonna get sued or are they not gonna get sued for defamation? Because if they don't get sued for defamation, you have your answer, right? So the Macron sued her, but no one involved in the Epstein case has sued her or Massey or anyone else. Subliminal Sapper says, I've been reflecting on the shift from a debate mindset to a dialogue onto conversation rather than winning. We're stuck with these people, and while not everyone will change their minds, every person makes us stronger. There you go. So look, guys, we did it too. It's like I was, very aggressive with my debates against right-wingers for a long, long time. And I believe that was needed at the time. We needed a pushback. The Democrats were too soft. Now we're in a different place, and we need to bring the country back together, and we need to bring people to our side. So I love that you guys are seeing it. We're gonna do it together. I know it's super hard, but it's gonna work. Martinez Holt says, now this is YouTube members. Yeah, let's get back to releasing those files. Ash Owens says, when is Bibi ever gonna be held accountable? Nobody in the world wants to stand up against Bibi. Sad. Look, the only people who could hold him accountable are Israelis. If the Israelis ever hold Netanyahu accountable, it'll be a great day in world history. I wouldn't hold your breath, but it's not impossible. Tim Powell says, yes, I love that you guys are getting more play on other networks. Thank you, Tim. Jana Ernest says, Anna, I love your outfit, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, agreed, here. War Dragon says the UN had to very much cross its T's and dot its I's to make sure it proved the case. There will be a reckoning for Netanyahu in Israel after this, I think, but it'll almost certainly be too late. Yeah, I don't know about that. So far, the Israeli population has not turned enough to get to a new election, right? They have to put pressure people inside the government to leave the government. And that's just the practicality of that is not happening. I wish it was, I hope it will be, but it hasn't tonight.
I have to say something real quick about Kash Patel. Consider the fact that had it not been for Robinson's father pressuring him to turn himself in, we might have never known, ever, who shot and killed Charlie Kirk.
No, the investigation was
a disaster.
Yeah, abominable. It's just, yeah, he's a fool with no experience at all.
It's actually scary, it really is.
Yeah, it's so obvious. Sean 1MCC1 says, I'll be watching Janko Tucker tonight. Mark Francis 076 says, I call my representative each week and ask them to release the files, but they're silent on the subject. Well, of course they are, because they work for the people doing this. Anyway, we'll be right back, guys. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also for Hannah Siraj, Nat Lort Nelson, Ghania Islam, and Mark Muniz. So love it, they all hit the join button below on YouTube and became part of the Young Turks. I love how smart and caring our audience is. And I love that it's from all across the world and every race, religion there is, starting to unify people into common sense and honesty.
Yes, love it.
Yeah, we love it. You could also join through tyt.com/join. We love that. All right, Anna.
Well, it was a big day for Tyler Robinson, the man who allegedly shot and killed Charlie Kirk. Let's get into the details.
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. That was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray.
The defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant, notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty.
Well, Tyler Robinson, the suspect in the killing of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, had his first court appearance today. And as you just heard, he is facing the death penalty. And I want to get into the very specific charges he's facing. But before we do that, I think it's worth talking a little bit about what we heard from the Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, who has officially revealed some of the political motives of Charlie Kirk's alleged killer, Tyler Robinson, while giving some more insight into his motive. Take a look at this.
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented.
Now, keep in mind that his family was conservative. His father is very conservative, apparently a Trump supporter. And this change in his political views apparently led to some tension between Robinson and his father. And I want you to hear a little more of what Gray had to say, according to Robinson's mother.
She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate.
Now, after the shooting, Robinson suggested to his parents that not only did he not want to turn himself into to the police, but that he would take extreme measures if he was pressured to do so. Here's some more detail on that.
His father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff.
Now, what you heard in that press conference is corroborated by messages that Robinson sent his roommate immediately after the shooting took place. So I'm gonna get to those messages and that exchange in just a moment. But just to give you the charges that he's facing, per Gray, Robinson has officially been charged with multiple felonies and a capital offense, including aggravated murder, which is the capital offense for intentionally or knowingly causing the death of Charlie Kirk under circumstances that created a great risk of death to others, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, 2 counts of felony obstruction of justice, 2 counts of witness tampering, and commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child. And Gray has said that he will be filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty as well. And in relation to that, he says, I do not take this decision lightly, and it is a decision I have made independently. Cenk.
Yeah, well, that begins to answer some of the questions, right? So there's a long message about the rifle. There was a series of questions that people were asking online. Mm-hmm. So they were wondering why Kash Patel said yesterday, for example, there was a note that said that Robinson committed the murder. He was gonna kill Charlie Kirk, but the note is destroyed, but we already know what was in the note. And then everybody was like, wait, what?
Yeah, he said that there was forensic evidence of the note. And there could be an explanation for that.
Yeah, there could be. Yeah,
so for instance, there's a note, maybe through other text messages or other communications, two people communicated about the existence of that note, but it was destroyed. You get what I'm saying? So there could be a possible explanation, but the problem is there isn't much faith in the competence of Kash Patel, and he says things that lead to even more questions.
Yeah, others were asking, why is the rifle disassembled and then reassembled back in the woods, but then left, right? And so in the text messages, you see a long explanation of that. Oh, I really wanted to get the rifle back, but I couldn't get the rifle back, but I really wanted to. It's grandpa's, et cetera, right? And so the thing that would be, for all the doubters out there, and every once in a while this case looks super weird, and I start to ask questions, but a lot of the questions were answered today, right? So for example, his parents, why would they turn him in if he didn't do it? And why are their answers so detailed, right? So they say they also have the DNA on the rifle, the towel, et cetera,
And allegedly that the reason why his mother recognized him right away, well, of course you're gonna recognize your own child, number one, but there was the rifle itself, which is apparently somewhat unique. And so that's why the father was asking him to send a photo of the rifle. Because at that point, the authorities already had the rifle in their possession. He's like, all right, well, you have the rifle, send me a picture, and he wasn't responding to his father.
Yeah, so I don't know that they answered every question. Where's the bullet that was fired? Why did he engrave the bullets, et cetera? But you see in all the correspondence with his roommate, and he goes into the place where he's playing games online, and everywhere he goes, he says, it was me, it was me, it was me. Now, I'm sure that there's gonna be a next layer to that, which is people are gonna say, yeah, you could type that out from a computer, but I don't know that it was him typing it out from a computer, et cetera. But so far, if these things are to be believed, and remember, there's a ton of cops involved, federal, state, et cetera. So faking anything now would be very difficult, right? Presumably. So if these things are to be believed, which I generally do believe, then it looks like they got the right guy, and it looks like he's gonna face justice. And we all want him to face justice. We don't want anything to happen to him, because then that'll go back to fishy and weird, right? Make sure the cameras are working outside the jail cell, et cetera. But so far, it looks like they got him.
Right, so the other, I guess, corroborating evidence that we've seen so far that this is the right guy are the messages that Tyler Robinson was sending to his roommate, who is, just based on how these conversations went, seems to be a partner, okay? So Robinson wrote to the roommate, I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem, that's where the shooting took place, for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. Who talks like that? Anyway, rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. The roommate responds, you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson responds, I am, I'm sorry. The roommate says, I thought they caught the person. So remember, there were two other individuals who were briefly detained following the shooting. And so that's what they're about to discuss in this next exchange, where Robinson says, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate responds with why. Robinson says, why did I do it? Roommate says, yeah. At that point, Robinson says, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. Let me just pause for a second. I couldn't stand his hatred, so I shot and killed him in front of his children.
Yeah, that's the thing about psychos. They don't make any sense. Oh, he's so filled with hate, so I murdered him, which is 10,000 times more hateful.
Yeah, 100%. But let me continue with the rest of what he had to say. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate responds, how long have you been planning this? Robinson says, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Next, Robinson says, delete this exchange. This guy seems like a genius. And he says, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle and it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. And then he says, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Then he says, at this point, the roommate, in that exchange, the roommate didn't respond at all. But the last time the roommate responded is in this next exchange. I'm gonna turn myself in willingly. One of the neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. You are all I worry about, love. Roommate says, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson says, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent.
So there was some theories out there that the roommate knew and that there was a group of trans folks online who knew ahead of time, etc. But it seems clear that the roommate definitely did not know and seems shocked by it, right? So if this was a thing that was planned out on behalf of a certain community, etc., and they all knew about it and they were all celebrating it, etc., that's not what it says at all.
And that goes for the entirety of the left, guys, right? So when you hear commentary from the right about how they killed Charlie Kirk, you can hate the commentary on the left, and I've seen some pretty reprehensible, disgusting celebrations following Charlie Kirk's murder. But what does they mean? One individual took it upon himself to carry out this gruesome, disgusting act of violence. He robbed someone of their life. And as we all know, there are gradations and variations of beliefs on the left. We live in a two-party system that doesn't really make much sense. You gotta pick one or the other. And honestly, for someone like me, for instance, neither side really represents what my principles and values are. So be careful with that type of generalizing language, because I think it's gonna further deteriorate the conditions of this country and the way that we relate to one another as Americans.
Okay, yeah, so when there's two layers to that, right? First, when a shooter comes out, everybody goes, okay, what is he? Why did he do it? In the old days, it used to be, is he Muslim or not Muslim, right? That hasn't happened in a while. So now they get into, is it a white male who's white supremacist, etc.? Is it a trans person? The right wing asks, even though there's only been two of those, I think, in the history of America. So in terms of shooters, and then we get into that kind of debate. And then who do they represent? In this case, it was kind of complicated because there was a theory out there that doesn't look like it's correct, that it was Groypers. Those are the Nick Fuentes followers, etc., right? So one of the things that I asked before we found out what his motive was is, if it's the Groypers, should we hate all of them and should we attack them and generalize about them? If it turns out it's the opposite, it's the left, should we hate them and attack them? And then when you ask that question, you begin to realize how absurd it is, because it's one person. And if it turns out to be in this direction or that direction, how does it implicate millions of people in either side, right? So that's why they're like, well, okay, so this one turns out to be a white male and he's not Muslim, he's not black, he's not trans, he's not gay or whatever, right? Oh, we found a roommate and the roommate might be trans. And then there was a wild conspiracy theory that I alluded to earlier about a cabal of trans people egging him on, etc. Now the police are saying no such thing exists. The roommate didn't even know, right? So then when you realize, it's not some sort of organized effort, right? Then it's just a random, like here's another example, make it easy. Paul Pelosi's attacker, right? So if we said they are coming to get you, and by the way, sometimes in the past we have said that, okay, or at least I'll speak for myself. I was very frustrated by one attack after another that targeted race, Dylan Roof, the guy who shot Latinos in Texas, on and on and on, right? But no, they are not all of the right wing. This guy is not all of the left wing. And that's kind of obvious once you think it through, right? So if I said to you, if you're on the right and I said to you, you are Paul Pelosi's attacker. If you see a Democrat, I think you're gonna grab a hammer and start smashing their head in, even if they, under any circumstances, even if they're a frail old man in their 80s. You say, wait a minute, that's a crazy assumption. Why would I do that? No, that's just some random guy that I got nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, well, we've got so much more to get to. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about how pushback from the left and the right against what Attorney General Pam Bondi had to say about our speech rights made her back off potentially censorious action against the American public. So we're gonna get to that story and more when we come back. Don't miss it.
All right, let's go to YouTube members here. I'd like to read your comments throughout the breaks. Subliminal Sapper says, if that's true, and that's a very big if, that's the worst thing you could possibly do for any cause, especially under this administration. Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, violence is immoral by definition, so you don't need a second reason not to do violence. But if you wanted one, why would you take somebody on their side and turn them into a martyr? That obviously everyone will talk positively about him for the rest of time because of how he was tragically killed, and you'll get people to hate your own side. Terrorism is always the dumbest thing in the world. It's like it hasn't worked since 1948. Okay, so yeah, it did work back then in one case, right? But since then, it's been nothing but utter failures. All it does is it makes everyone despise your side. Jamie writes in, love you guys, keep up the great work. Faye Scott Smith says, both sides make me sick. All they ever do is argue. How will we as a nation ever have peace? Diddly D says, love your outfit, Cenk. Well, thank you, I appreciate that. Rare outfit compliment for me.
You do look good today.
Thank you guys. Felix De Leon writes in, I watched The Voice of Hind Rajab at Toronto International Film Festival. How can anyone deny Israel's committing a genocide after watching this film? Well, remember, the folks who support Israel, they don't want to watch movies like that. They'll just say, oh, anti-Semite, everybody's an anti-Semite. And you'll be like, no, the producers, like one of the top Jewish producers in Hollywood, right? They're like, it doesn't matter, self-hater, anti-Semite, right? You should watch another movie, it's very easy. Go to bravenewfilms.org, Gaza, Journalist Under Fire. By the way, another Jewish filmmaker, Robert Greenwald, one of the best men in the country, if you ask me. I love that guy. And that's just 41 minutes. If you watch that movie and say there is no genocide, you're so blind, it's impossible to help you, right? No, it's overwhelming anytime you see any of it on tape. Project for Progress says, and by the way, go spread that on bravenewfilms.org. You can invite people to watch it. You can watch it yourself, have people come over, etc. It's super powerful. It's about how Israel's killed more journalists than any other nation, and it follows 3 journalists, super heartbreaking. Project for Progress says, I'm not stupid enough to believe it, but for Cash Me Outside and this administration standards, this twist in the plot is a pretty good excuse. They're learning from Israel and adapting. Alonis 420 says on Twitch, too much money is being made in too many directions, keeping things messed up. Unless there's a substantial public uprising, you are either a billionaire, a tool for the billionaires, or an enemy of the billionaires. So look, to me, it's not even about billionaires or not billionaires, it's about money in politics. It's about, are you influencing the politicians by giving them millions of dollars? And so the people that are most guilty of that are corporations, which are not people at all, right? So we have to stop corporations and foreign governments from giving to our politicians. If we don't, they'll obviously bribe them, and they'll obviously work for them instead of us. That is the core of the problem, no question about it, not even close. Everything else is secondary to that. Navinik says, and now this is on TYT.com members, in that it is your testimony today part, Schiff sounds like Cenk doing a British impression. I know, that's part of the problem with Schiff. Anyway, Jarv Jam Bongino writes, and I mean, he's only the head of the FBI. Why would he know these details of a huge criminal investigation into decades-long underage sex trafficking ring? All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Kevin, and Valenthea SL. They're the beautiful Americans who hit the join button below and became part of the Young Turks. We appreciate you guys. Without the members, we literally can't do this show. Now, you won't have an honest show that tries to bring you all the news in an unbiased way. Okay, the other folks who help us do that is our sponsors. So in this case, we spend a lot of time picking these sponsors so they actually provide a service for you that's valuable. It's Chapter. They help you with your Medicare plans. So whether it's you or your parents, you have got to do this, okay? You got to do it with somebody. And these are the guys that after we did the research, we trust. So they save on average $1,100 a year. That is a giant number because you don't know if you're on the right plan. By the way, if you are on the right plan, they'll just tell you, right? But if you're on the wrong plan, they can save you a lot of money. So the number is 707-TYT-HELP. Takes about 20 minutes, is free. 707-TYT-HELP, okay? And other members have started to write in saying how much they've saved from it, which I love. And it only takes 20 minutes. So there's no reason not to do it. 707-TYT-HELP. All right, Anna.
All right, well, we should talk a little bit about what our Constitution actually protects when it comes to our First Amendment rights. So let's get into it and maybe educate Pam Bondi a little bit.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything, and that's across the aisle.
I remember when that type of rhetoric was used by the left around 2020 when it came to hate speech and how it should be banned. But it's not banned, it's actually protected by the United States Constitution. The only speech, and it's very, very narrow, that can be banned and is banned is any speech that specifically incites violence that could actually lead to harm against specific individuals. Now, in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder, Attorney General Pam Bondi is vowing to target anyone who spreads what she considers to be hate speech. Luckily, she faced so much backlash from members of both sides of the political aisle that she appears to have backed off those comments. But let me give you some more of the context. So before we hear more from her appearance on the Katie Miller podcast, where she doubled down by conflating obvious cases of political violence, let me just note that whether you're on the left or the right, people in America, because of our First Amendment rights, have the protection to engage in the most loathsome, hateful speech. The speech of literal Klan members is protected as long as they're not inciting violence through their speech or directing violence toward specific people. Now, with that in mind, let's go to the video of Pam Bondi doubling down, basically doubling down in regard to how hate speech should be banned.
The anti-Semitism, what's been happening at college campuses around this country is disgusting, it's despicable, and we've been fighting that. We've been fighting these universities left and right, and we're not going to stop. Look what happened. Think about Josh Shapiro. They firebombed his house. That's what's happened in this world, and we are gonna fight every step of the way to show that you will face the most severe consequences if you come after someone and you target someone for their political views or for any reason at all.
Do you think Charlie was assassinated because our country can't handle free speech or because one type of speech is seen as obscene by another political party?
Well, in this case, it was clearly obscene by a political party, an opposing view, sure, but it doesn't matter. You can't have that hate speech in the world in which we live.
We should be really concerned that the Attorney General of the United States literally just conflated the violent act of trying to burn down Governor Josh Shapiro's home. That was a violent act. She conflated that with hate speech.
Yeah, so look, there's two parts of the story. One is this effort to stifle dissent and call it hate speech. The other is the reaction to it. I hate the first, love the second. Okay, so, but I wanna, look, it's easy for me to say, I'm against a right-wing administration, Trump administration, saying that they're going to clamp down on speech because they consider it hate speech, because they're going to consider anything on the left hate speech, right? And Trump actually kind of confirmed that today,
right?
And we got that for you and stuff. So, but guys, I want to challenge our side too, and we did this not just now, but back then. So you heard us having conversations, debates about hate crimes. Should we even have a thing called a hate crime? Is it if you killed someone because they're fill in the blank, black, white, woman, man, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, etc. Should there be an extra penalty? And I've always been against that because murder is murder. You give them a life sentence. You don't, or whatever is the maximum that you can charge the maximum. We don't need to add anything on top of that. I don't really quite care why they did it. I care that it got done. And if you say that I care about what they said while they were doing an act of violence, what you're doing is punishing speech, right? So, but the main point I'm making is it's easy when you're in power to say that the other side has hate and we should punish it, right? Oh, so they're being racist or they're being Islamophobic or they're being this or they're being that and I want to punish them. We'll put aside the hate crime even on normal speech, right? They shouldn't be allowed to say that. They shouldn't be platformed. They shouldn't this, they shouldn't that. Now we're out of power and all of a sudden Pam Bondi and Trump says, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to say some things that offend us.
Right.
And all of a sudden we don't like that. That's why you have to be principled and say that you're against any restrictions on the First Amendment. And we're not talking about yelling fire in a crowded theater or specifically threatening violence against someone that is not covered by the First Amendment, but actual political opinion, no matter how deeply offensive it is. Of course it's covered by the First Amendment.
And let people air their disgusting, hateful, thoughts and rhetoric. Because while it is true that the Constitution protects that individual from retaliation by the government, we all know that if people are sharing vile, racist, hateful opinions, there are consequences through other means, either through their employer or whatever. So, and you get to actually know what that person believes, and you get to fight that hateful rhetoric and ideology with more discourse. So,
can I just give one quick example there?
Yeah.
Randy Fine is a congressman from Florida. He's a disgusting pig. He talks about starving the entire population of Gaza. He's rooted for the annihilation of Gaza. So he's a genocidal freak, right? Do I want him imprisoned for hate speech? It doesn't get any more hateful than let's kill a couple of million people, right? No, I got this. So we'll battle Randy Fine. We'll meet him in the battlefield of ideas. And I hope to God that he's never elected again by the good people of Florida. And that's how we handle things in America. Even when you say the most disgusting, genocidal things like Representative Randy Fine.
Now, people on both sides of the aisle, luckily, and I'm really, really proud of this, immediately slammed Bondi for saying that the government will in fact target hate speech, something that Charlie Kirk, by the way, himself explicitly condemned just last year. So I want to remind you all of this post that he made on X, writing that hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. And I think he genuinely did believe that, to his credit. Now, among the conservatives who called out Bondi was Eric Erickson, who I think has actually been a pretty reasonable member on the right. I'm sure I disagree with him on a whole host of things, but he seems to have some actual moral values, seems to care about this country. He writes that our attorney general is apparently a moron. There's free speech and then there is hate speech. No, ma'am, that is not the law, and he's right about that. GOP operative Matt Wolking called the comments sickening, and the National Review's Charles C.W. Cook wrote this in a scathing column about Bondi. Get a load of this. Under every relevant Supreme Court precedent, speech is speech is speech. There are other categories of speech, libel, incitement, threats, and so on. But speech that is supposedly hateful, including about Charlie Kirk's murder, is undoubtedly protected by the Constitution. Kirk himself was clear about this. And by the way, just to add to that, let's say it is determined that hate speech is not protected by our Constitution. It is, but just for argument's sake, let's pretend like it isn't. Well then, who would the arbiter of hate speech be? Who gets to decide what is and is not considered hate speech? So that's something to consider if you are arguing in favor of banning hate speech, which I think would be a really bad idea. Now, there are liberals, of course, who spoke out against what Bondi was saying, including liberal Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She appeared to take a swipe at Bondi today while speaking at a panel at New York Law School, saying, "Every time I listen to a lawyer-trained representative saying we should criminalize free speech in some way, I think to myself, that school failed." But one person who seemed to enthusiastically support what Pam Bondi was saying there was none other than the President of the United States, Donald Trump. This morning, ABC's Jonathan Karl asked Trump about Bondi's comments, and here's how that went down.
What do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
We'd probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair. It hasn't been fair. And the radical left has done tremendous damage to the country, but we're fixing it.
So when President Trump makes comments like that, it communicates to me that he doesn't care about our Constitution. He doesn't care about what makes this country great. The freedom of speech, the freedom of press, that is so incredibly important. I think it's the cornerstone of a democracy. You can't have a democratic process unless Americans are able to freely express themselves, freely assemble, and to debate their political views without fear of retaliation from the government. And Trump appears to be against that, especially when the speech is critical of what he's up to in the Oval Office. Now, finally, after facing a wave of backlash for her comments, Pam Bondi put out a tweet trying to make it seem as though she was always talking about violent threats, not hate speech. She says hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. Yes, we know that. I don't think you did earlier, but nonetheless, she says it's a crime. For far too long, we've watched the radical left normalize threats, call for assassinations, and cheer on political violence. That era is over. You cannot call for someone's murder, she says. You cannot swat a member of Congress. You cannot dox a conservative family and think it will be brushed off as free speech. These acts are punishable crimes, and every single threat will be met with the full force of the law. Free speech protects ideas, debate, even dissent, but it does not and never will protect violence. Right, but again, that is not what she initially said. She's kind of trying to, walk back without apologizing for her previous comments where she clearly just made it obvious that she either doesn't know what the Constitution protects, Cenk, or doesn't care what the Constitution protects.
Yeah, so if she gets her way, then first of all, then this is a different country. A lot of things will be banned. And you won't be able to say your real opinions because then hate is in the eye of the beholder, which is why we've always been against classifying hate speech as a crime. And also because we read the Constitution. But if she gets her way, every administration is going to change it. So when you've got a Republican in charge, it's going to be hate against right-wing individuals, et cetera, what Pam Bondi laid out. When Democrats get in charge, nope, that's not hate anymore. Now hate is racism, sexism, et cetera. Republican gets back in charge, we flip it again. No, racism, sexism is okay. Now, come on guys, this is absurd, utterly absurd. And then the most absurd and ironic thing is, whether you believed him or not on Charlie Kirk's defense of freedom of speech, he certainly made it a cornerstone of his career and his legacy. And so the post that Anna read you from Charlie is crystal clear, right? 100% in favor of freedom of speech and against classifying hate speech as a crime. So it would be deeply ironic to say, because Charlie Kirk believed in freedom of speech and he was killed, now we're going to take away freedom of speech. Well, how does that honor him? That does the exact opposite. So it's kind of disgusting, actually. All right, so then that leads to, how did the right wing react? Now, I had buckled up because I saw the reaction to the shooting, and I understand it, and there was rage, right? And I know where that rage comes from, and they have every right to be super frustrated. But then it got went in a direction you would expect, which was rage against the entire left and revenge and let's go get him and no more, etc. So in that environment, when someone says maybe we should lock people up for their opinions, it's ripe for the right wing and people who voted for Trump that might not even be in the right to go, yeah, lock them up, right? But they didn't. Largely, not all, but the majority appear to be saying on the right, no. We said we were against hate speech being classified as a crime. We're still against it, even when we were in charge.
Yep.
And I gotta tell you, you gotta give them credit for that. When you stay principled, even when you're in charge. I mean, we were so worried that they were not going to stick to principles. They were just gonna go for raw power, right? And does that strain exist? Well, obviously, look at Pam Bondi. She literally tried it this morning, right? And look at Stephen Miller, and he's talking about, we're gonna call people domestic terrorists and take away their rights, etc. But a lot of the right is pushing back against their own administration and saying, no, even as angry as they are, and they are angry, right? For them to say no to Pam Bondi, no to Trump on this, that's pretty great, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty psyched about that as a country, for what it means for our country. Now, other bad things might be down the pike, but this is a huge one because it affects all of our freedoms.
Now, let me be clear about one thing that has been very consistent with us here at The Young Turks, certainly the main show, there's no question. Because I've worked with you for over 18 years. We do not support political violence of any kind. And we believe in free speech, even when the speech is being uttered by those we disagree with. And when we come back from the break, we're gonna show you how Dave Rubin, a former employee of TYT, unfairly attacked Cenk Uygur, took him out of context, thought he got Cenk in a big gotcha, but we've got the receipts. So stick around, we'll be right back with all the details.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Rich and powerful men abusing, assaulting, and abandoning young women. These rich and powerful men donate to the politicians in Washington, D.C., play golf with the elites in Washington, D.C. They are foreign leaders who we don't want to offend. They interact with our intelligence agencies that we don't want to disobey. There is something rotten in Washington.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
All those congressmen you just saw there are on the record as protecting the child rapists who were clients of Epstein. They have not prosecuted a single person outside of Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
Not one.
Is Trump engaging in this cover-up because he's in the Epstein files?
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
So as the government keeps telling us, yeah, there's other people. Yeah, they raped those girls. So what? We're gonna cover up for them. But why are you guys so mad?
A nation that chooses impunity for the rich and the powerful at the expense of our children is a nation that has lost its moral purpose. Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of America's children? Or are you on the side of the rich and powerful who've had their thumb on the scales and shafted Americans for decades?
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one. In a media landscape poisoned by corporate influence, only one show stands apart from the rest, The Young Turks. As the longest running daily news show on the internet, The Young Turks is an impactful voice of unfiltered truth, one you can trust to deliver the daily news with authenticity and honesty. For nearly 2 decades, TYT has been breaking the mold of media. We're not here to echo the powerful or the elite, we're here to challenge them. Our mission is to give you accurate news, fight the establishment, and cover stories that mainstream media keeps you in the dark about, which matter to your everyday life. We've remained a leader in online news because of our established credibility with an engaged audience looking for alternative media that represents the real concerns of everyday Americans. Listen to The Young Turks, a news show that only answers to you on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How do you know if you're a populist? Easy. Do you work for the donor class? You don't? Great, you're a populist. Okay, so the establishment takes money from the donors and serves the donors. A mainstream media takes money from advertisers, and they are giant corporations themselves, and they work for themselves, and they work for the powerful. If you care about the average person, and you want the average person to have better health care, better wages, a better life, and you hate corruption, congrats, you're a populist.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and then two people somewhat potentially related to us. Not really, but Amir Sufi just joined, and one of my long lost relatives was a Sufi, so that okay. And Kasper Kolodzev, okay, an Eastern.
You nailed it, Cenk.
No, it's an Eastern European name. That's why I go Kolodzev. Okay, I have no idea how to say it, brother, but thank you. And I don't know if it's male or female, but it could be Kachbat or Casper. But either way, we love that you're here.
You know, I looked up what Casparian means once. I haven't done it in a while, so I could be wrong. But I think it means like keeper of treasure.
Ooh.
Which, you know.
Sorry. Hashtag not sorry. Okay.
All right.
And as a lot of you know that have been with us for a while, Cenk means war.
I mean, the name fits.
Okay.
All right, so let's get to our next story.
Shut up. Let's get to reality, okay? So your last two guests, while pretending to be conciliatory, one of them started talking about me and started talking about blood on their hands. And then this idiot brings out a clip from 10 years ago that's about words and is pretending it has to do with violence.
Well, Cenk, it looks like your former employee tried to play a little trick on you during your appearance on Piers Morgan.
He did, but there's another person on that panel that I want to tell you about too after Anna gives you the receipts on Dave Rubin.
So I was curious about what Dave Rubin was accusing Cenk of, and it was something I wanted to look into because, you know, if we've done anything wrong in the past, if we've said anything that can be interpreted as inciting violence, well, we should apologize for it, denounce what we've said in the past, but that's not what happened here. So Dave Rubin played this nasty trick on Cenk during this scuffle on Piers Morgan last week, and it is worth getting into just how shady and how dishonest the attack was, and how his false allegations could even inspire violence against Cenk. Now, first, he blasted off a bunch of relatively innocuous video titles referencing things that Charlie Kirk actually said. These are stories that we covered. Now, understand that Cenk Uygur is not sitting in front of a computer and literally like publishing our videos. We have a company, we have a team. But even so, there's nothing wrong with these titles. They're descriptive of what the content included. So with that in mind, take a look.
Well, Piers, it's not even that it's about his actual opinions. It's about the opinions that many thought leaders on the left purport that he has, which are complete lies. So look, I am in somewhat of a reconciliatory mode here. So I'd like to ask Cenk, I have 10 headlines here he has put up about Charlie Kirk. They are on his channel right now, and let's see if Cenk believes that these are true. Charlie Kirk says prominent black women took white people's spots. Charlie Kirk boasts about his all-white basketball team. Charlie Kirk gives piggish advice to high school girls. Ex-employee exposes Charlie Kirk's grift. Charlie Kirk embarrasses himself. Charlie Kirk's brain melts explaining anti-vax conspiracy. Charlie Kirk rants about women in their 30s. Charlie Kirk has literally no clue how the real world works. Charlie Kirk gets triggered, declines appearance over pronouns. Charlie Kirk doubles down on women-hating backlash. I am telling you, peers, Charlie Kirk was one of the best human beings I ever met. He did not have a bone of racism, misogyny, or anything else in his body. But liars lie.
Liars do lie, and what he's doing there is essentially lying to make it seem like the very same type of content that you would see all across YouTube is somehow inciting violence and inspiring people to carry out murder, including the murder of Charlie Kirk. Like, those titles weren't even violent, and it had to do with what Charlie Kirk said on the record. So we need to be able to be engaged in political debate. And if we disagree with what someone is saying in the context of a political discussion or a speech, we're gonna do it. What happened to Charlie Kirk was wrong, okay? The individual who carried out, Tyler Robinson, the alleged murderer, should be brought to justice, there's no question about it. But to exploit that murder, to try to silence criticism of any political ideology or any political figure is ridiculous. And Dave Rubin, even with the plotting of this attack on Cenk, couldn't get it right. It's amazing how stupid he is. Anyway, I also noticed that he notably left out the video and title here. This is another video that we did of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, this is the gayest generation in American history. Dave Rubin, notably gay. I don't have a problem with it, but a lot of people on the right have. Not necessarily Charlie Kirk. I haven't seen Charlie Kirk attack Dave Rubin, but I remember when Dave Rubin was bringing children into this world through surrogacy. Oh, the right didn't like that, did they? But let me continue.
The extreme right.
The extreme right, not everyone on the right. There are definitely moderates who don't have a problem with it. Now, after that, Rubin plays an out of context audio clip featuring Cenk. Let's take a look at that.
Well, you know what, Cenk, I'll ask you a question directly, actually. Do you think Charlie wanted to be martyred? Do you think Charlie wanted to be martyred? Do you think Charlie wanted to be killed? Yes or no?
Of course not. What kind of asinine question is that?
You don't, because that's pretty interesting. Because here's a video of you, Cenk, talking when Charlie was at a breakfast.
For these guys, and they don't deserve it. But I do also want to point out, as they're in the middle of crying now, although Charlie was smiling ear to ear throughout the entire video, thinking, yes, I'm now the victim, and I'll get to claim that my rights have been abridged.
Did you catch the beginning of that, Cenk?
Okay, so random audio clip from one of the videos where Cenk is covering a story involving Charlie Kirk. But then he gives a little more context, which gave me the opportunity and ability to look up the actual video and see what the context was. We're gonna get to that in just a minute, but here's what else Dave had to say.
Did you catch the beginning of that, Cenk? Listen, we'll do it again.
No, I didn't, and that's totally out of. No, we're not going to do it again. Totally out of context. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
No. Listen, brother.
Are you trying to get harm on me? Is that what you're trying to do, you loser? Jesus Christ.
No. I'm trying to
do conciliation.
Exactly what people like you
look at the last two things of your last two guests.
Piers.
Jesus,
no,
man.
What they
You
said
guys are
was, yes,
unbearable.
we should have reconciliation, but it is not without any contrition, right? It's not without a mea culpa. Charlie was accosted by Antifa at a breakfast in Philadelphia, and the video that I just played is you with a cartoon of him as Charlie Brown saying that he would love to be martyred so he could be the victim. Well, I guarantee you, his wife, who now doesn't have a husband, and his kids who don't have fathers, did not want him to be martyred.
What you just played isn't what
It's exactly what you said, brother. It's exactly what it was. Let's do it again.
No, it isn't.
We just heard
it. We just heard it.
It's not.
All right, so
it's not.
no.
Let's do it again.
Cut this crap out.
Okay, so he mentioned something about Charlie Brown. Again, enough context clues for me to find the video in question. It actually dates back to August 6th, 2018. So let's take a look at what Cenk actually said in the video.
This weekend, there were some actions taken against them that I do not agree with. I wanted to show that for you guys. As always, we believe in being principled here and being for freedom of speech no matter what. Yeah, I don't agree with that. They poured water over his head. It's not the right thing to do. One, because anything physical is not the morally right thing to do and not the progressive thing to do. Number two, it allows them to play the victim card, which they can't wait to play. So why would you help them like that?
What was wrong with his commentary there? And why was Dave Rubin making it appear as though Cenk was inciting violence against Charlie Kirk? That has never happened. We have always been against violence because we find it immoral and undemocratic, by the way. We like dialogue, we like debate. And we have on multiple occasions condemned individuals who identify as left-wing activists for trying to ban speakers on college campuses, for trying to carry out acts of violence to intimidate their political opponents. So Dave Rubin should eat a peen. Go ahead, Cenk.
Okay, so I'll get back to the other person in that panel in a second. But first, we had the titles, right? And he's like, look at these anti-Charlie Kirk titles that you guys have had over a decade or so that we've known and battled Charlie, right? Are we not supposed to do videos about anyone on the other side in case they might get killed at a later date? What an absurd standard. But wait a minute, if that's the standard, then Dave Rubin shouldn't do any videos about us or anyone else. Because if something happens later, you did an anti-Cenk video. That is unacceptable.
It's a ridiculous standard.
No,
and he knows it, and he knows it.
But that's the thing, guys. So the thing with Dave Rubin and why no one likes him on the left or the right is because he's kind of an obvious liar. And so I'm gonna get back to that in a second, because there's something here that Anna just showed you that really proves it without a shadow of a doubt, right? So he reads a bunch of innocuous titles about things Charlie actually said, right? So, and again, let's think that through that standard. So if I say something outrageous about the right, no one's allowed to make a video about it and quote me accurately or object at all in case something happens to me later, because then you drove hatred towards me. No, that can't be the standard. Otherwise, no one's allowed to say anything, right? So obviously the correct standard is, did you encourage violence or did you discourage violence? Did you fight in the battlefield of ideas or one that is physical and violent, right? So if you say, no, there shouldn't even be a battlefield of ideas, no one should ever say anything, well, that's absurd. Everybody knows that's absurd. So none of those titles were, or the content of that was in any way misleading, and it was us disagreeing with Charlie. And what's interesting is that we disagree with Charlie a lot, but nevertheless, we invited him on the show. And we got a lot of heat from the left for inviting him on the show, right? And then when we had a conversation with him, we still disagreed on a lot of things about what the government should do in terms of encouraging families, et cetera, a million disagreements, right? But we found out, oh my God, we actually agree on a couple of things, and I was really surprised by it. You should watch that video from the Republican National Convention in 24, right?
In fact, Charlie felt so threatened by you inciting violence against him, Cenk, that he invited you to speak with him in person at a Turning Point event.
Yeah, and so look, so that's a great point too, and let me get to that real quick. So we talk at the RNC and then later at the DNC as well. And what we found out is, oh my God, it turns out we agree. Private equity should be banned from buying residential real estate because it's driving up housing prices. And that's a real big issue for folks on the right and the left, right? I was surprised at how much he agreed that the problem was corporate rule. I did not expect him to say that at all, okay? So it turns out when you talk to each other and when you listen to one another, you might actually find points of agreement. And then afterwards, he invited me to America Fest, what you're referring to there, Anna. And so I took a tremendous amount of criticism from the left for being the only one on the left who would go speak to Charlie Kirk at America Fest.
That's right.
So now Dave wants you to believe that I'm the worst in attacking Charlie Kirk, when Charlie Kirk, when he was here, was the one that invited me to this other, and I'm the only one who was willing to go, knowing that I was going to get tremendous backlash from folks on the left. Our base, and which, by the way, also, I know these guys are obsessed with money and business and how you're going to make money. And for Dave, it's a little bit easier because he has the Russians and others, okay? But we knew that would hurt our business because you're losing your own base of subscribers.
Yeah, you're losing a portion of your audience. Yes.
Yeah, when you have principles, right? And so to say that we were particularly inflammatory against Charlie Kirk is the opposite of the truth, right? And see, and that gets to the second point, which is, in my mind, devastating. So Dave knows, he looked at those titles, he looked at those videos, he did a lot of homework here, and he knows they're not inflammatory.
Yeah.
So he knew, well, let me just read a bunch of titles real quick and get people to be angry at Cenk. Maybe they'll take it out on Cenk, right? But then he goes to the second video, and that's where the giant mistake is. Because when you watch the video, you see me saying, and I hadn't watched it, Anna watched it and did the research on it.
Right.
I hadn't watched that ever since we did the video, right? It turns out I said the same thing in that video that I said today on the show, earlier today on the show. Right, left, doesn't matter, 2018, 2025 doesn't matter, because we believe in principles. And I said, I don't like that they did that to Charlie. It was pouring water over his head, and I said, that's the wrong thing to do. What's interesting, guys, is Dave also watched that video.
He did.
And he saw me say, do not do anything physical, do not do anything violent. But he chose to mislead all of you and make it seem like I was encouraging violence rather than what I actually did, which was discourage violence. That's because Dave Rubin is a unique liar. He has no moral core at all, okay? And that's why I remember when he first went on Joe Rogan, and he made up half a dozen things that weren't even based in anything, any reality.
He claimed that we edit interviews, even though all interviews are streamed live and we don't edit interviews. The one time that anything was edited was when Dave Rubin begged TYT to edit out a portion of his debate in favor of Israel, in which he just said flat out that he's okay with Israel bombing a school, knowing that it's full of children, but there might be one Hamas militant there. Which, by the way, I mean, he has now proven over and over again that he's supportive of that, but he wanted that edited out. He went on Joe Rogan's show and claimed, we edit interviews all the time and take people out of context. No, we don't. But we did edit a debate once for you to do you a solid because you said something pretty scummy and you knew it.
Yeah, I mean, no good deed goes unpunished. That goes for the entirety of Dave Rubin's career here at TYT. We picked him out of absolute obscurity. I'm so sorry, world, for doing that. And the only reason he got famous, he didn't get famous here. He got famous for attacking us and for making up all those lies. There's another half a dozen lies, but at this point you get it. So, but one last lie from that appearance on Piers Morgan. If you notice in the clip, I say, don't make him a victim because then he'll love that. And it's just harmless in that case, it's water. So he'll get to say, I'm the victim. And what did you do? You wound up helping his cause by attacking him.
And by the way,
don't attack him.
And what has happened now that he's been murdered? Right? He is seen as a martyr. And it's just true.
So we were right back then in telling you not to attack Charlie Kirk, but instead Dave didn't say any of that. He did a quote that he claimed that I said Charlie would love to be martyred, but I never said that in the video. In fact, I said don't turn him into a victim by doing this, right? So you get the point, guys. You should never trust anything that Dave Rubin says. He has this one, again, he's just not a good person. And two, he has this grudge against us that apparently is going to last forever and ever. So he's going to try to smear us from here to the end of time, right? And by the way, nobody's upset enough about Dave Rubin to do anything, right? Because he's such an irrelevant loser, to be honest. But if you are upset at him for this, don't do anything to Dave either. Okay, you don't need to ever do anything physical or violent. That is defeat, that is intellectual surrender.
Definitely.
Okay, and who would want to surrender to Dave Rubin? That would be totally pathetic. So last thing is, Konstantin Kisin was also on that panel, and he's the one I referred to with saying, that some on the left have blood on their hands, right? But Konstantin wrote to me afterwards and said, listen, I didn't mean it that way. I don't want to get into exactly what he said because it's private, right? But I appreciated it. He had a nice note saying, hey, you know what? I wasn't trying to do anything like Dave, right? Or again, not mentioning specifically what he said, but it was a nice note, right? And so that's what a person does, even when Constantine and I totally disagree on many things, and we've also battled, right?
Yeah.
But a good person says, hey, you know what? If I was misunderstood, I want you to know that I didn't mean it or whatever's cool and not cool, right? So I appreciated that note from him. And these days, by the way, guys, there is now a cadre of us on the left and the right that are having these conversations. And oftentimes these conversations are difficult, but we're getting to some agreement, which we've never gotten to before. All we've ever done is debate and fight and never get to agreement. But now we're beginning to get there, despite people like Dave Rubin who try to antagonize each other so that we hate each other forever.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about Donald Trump's latest lawsuit against the media.
All right, so let's go to YouTube members first. Box writes in, by the way, you could be a YouTube member by hitting the join button below. You could also ring the bell to keep up with the show more. We appreciate that. Box wrote in, Kirk's audience was actually very kind to Cenk. He got way fewer boos than I thought he would have. So I got booed on the things that we disagree on, gun control. I told him I could be considered extreme left on gun control, and they were like, no, boo, we don't like that. Got booed on the trans issue, etc. But by the way, notice that the left was not correct about that criticism that I just agree with Charlie Kirk. No, we disagreed. I got booed, but yeah, they cheered a bunch of times. Why? Because we agreed on anti-corruption. They booed Dick Cheney and Mitch McConnell, and then some of my critics on the left were like, "Oh, that doesn't count." Okay, so let's say Dick Cheney doesn't count, but it most certainly does. But the right wing booing Mitch McConnell, their former Senate Majority Leader, how could that not count?
Who cares? Look, no one's gonna police who we're gonna talk to. We're gonna talk to whoever we want. It's that simple. Okay, that's it.
Okay, Ghani Islam said, Rubin is so performative, such an intellectual lightweight. The country agrees to that. Marcos Dominguez says, late reaction, Anna has amazing taste in music. When you said last week you're a Tool fan, I lost it. They're my favorite band of all time, and yes, Danny Carey is the GOAT drummer.
Okay, the video of him drumming to Numa is like one of my favorite videos of all time. I watch that video when I lose faith in humanity, and I remember how magical humans are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, meanwhile, Bart's in stage managing today, normally has audio, said the best drummer, and Bart's like,
oh, come on, Bart, you're crazy. No, he's
anyways, Frank Thorne says, Anna, your name is biblical as it is derived from one of the three Magi, Casper. Speaking of which, Casper or Kachper writes in, I worry we're heading somewhere so dark that we will never recover from it. Guys, that's, I hate to say, but that's on the board. So look, things I think can go in a good direction, and sometimes the darkness comes before the light. Oh, in fact, it always does, right? But sometimes the darkness continues. So we don't know yet, and I don't want you to be too worried, but it is difficult times. We need to acknowledge that. Robert DeGucci says that stunt that Dave Rubin pulled was so disgusting. Thanks for saying that. Liz Moskrop wrote in, love you all in the UK here. Joined a few weeks ago feeling disillusioned. Although it's a crazy world, you two, Cenk and Anna, are my daily dose of hope. I want the side of soul and humanity. Thank you. Well, Liz, thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being a Young Turk. Thank you for caring and trying to get to hope. And look, we have a whole thing called Operation Hope. So tyt.com/hope. Come join us and try to put a little bit of positive change in the world. Michael Catalano said, as soon as Bondi started talking, my first thought was, how long till she brings this around to Israel? Of course, with Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi, and the rest, the minute they start talking about hate speech, the very first thing they're gonna target is hate speech against Israel. Okay, you're all banned, right? And it doesn't matter if you're left or right. Kevin Shea says, I'm sick of the ineptness of most of this administration. Almost all are unqualified and are an embarrassment to the country. William King says, oh, I'm out of time. Okay, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna and JGB, who hit the join button. We appreciate you. I'm going to read two quick quotes from YouTube members. Ali wrote in, I've been watching you guys since I was pregnant with my daughter, or Allie, I should say. She's now a freshman in college. Oh my God, that's depressing, but also awesome.
I feel like there's been violence directed toward me. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so Allie, no, we're literally the longest running show in internet history, so it makes sense. Anyways, they wrote, sometimes I don't agree, but I respect the discourse. Love that. And William King said, God, now they will double down on LGBTQIA+. F. So the reason I wanted to read what Will wrote is because they shouldn't do that. We've tried with every fiber in our being to make sure that nobody gets attacked for who they are, especially because of some random psycho who did something, no matter which side they're on. Also, another good reason never to do an act of violence, because it is always gonna backfire. And I know that better than anyone coming from a Muslim background. Every time some idiot, psychotic Muslim fundamentalist did an attack, we all suffered for it. So no one knows that better than the Muslim community. Do not do any act of violence. It becomes so much worse for the group that you think you're defending, but actually putting in grave danger.
That's a great point, yep. All right, well, let's talk about how Trump is getting increasingly defensive about some of his shady business deals. And rather than maybe stop, he's attacking the press.
The appropriate President Trump, there's a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Hawthorne and Pro.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
Well, that was Trump sounding kind of authoritarian, no? In response to a reporter from Australia asking a question that he's super defensive about. And what is he defensive about? Well, apparently the New York Times has uncovered some of the shady business deals involving his family and his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. Now, the president even announced that he will in fact be suing the New York Times over their reporting on this issue, in addition to a few of their reporters. Now, before we get to the suit specifically, let's actually take a look at the recent article that was published by the Times. They reported that over the summer, Witkoff visited Sheikh Tahnoun of the UAE. Now, he's a member of the ruling family of the UAE, and he controls the $1.5 trillion Emiratis Sovereign Wealth Fund. And so this was not their first meeting, okay? Over the past few months, Witkoff and the Sheikh had become both diplomatic allies and business partners, testing the limits of ethics rules while enriching the president, his family, and his inner circle. In fact, there were members of the Trump administration who were concerned about the ethical issues involved in making these types of deals. But of course, Trump and Witkoff moved forward anyway. Now, at the heart of their relationship are two multi-billion-dollar deals. One involved a crypto company, because of course it did, founded by the Witkoff and the Trump families that benefited both financially. The other involved a sale of valuable computer chips that benefited the Emirates economically. So the Times makes sure to state that there is no solid evidence of a quid pro quo. Their reporting was pretty responsible, I think, overly responsible in this regard, but nonetheless, that's what they state. But they do also write that the confluence of the two agreements is itself extraordinary. Taken together, they blurred the lines between personal and government business and raised questions about whether US interests were served. So that's what the Australian reporter was asking about. Now, in May, Witkoff's son, Zach, announced the first of the deals at a conference in Dubai. One of Sheikh Tahnoun's investment firms would deposit $2 billion into World Liberty Financial, a cryptocurrency startup founded by the Witkoffs and Trumps. 2 weeks later, the White House agreed to allow the UAE access to hundreds of thousands of the world's most advanced and scarce computer chips, a crucial tool in the high-stakes race to dominate artificial intelligence. Many of the chips would go to G42, a sprawling technology firm controlled by Sheikh Tahnoun, despite national security concerns that the chips could be shared with China. So when Trump visited the UAE in May to formalize this chips deal, he made no mention of the UAE's involvement with his crypto company. And he even told the Times that he knew nothing about it. Take a look.
An Emirati government backed the $2 billion deal using the Trump digital coins. How did that deal come about?
I don't know anything about it. I really don't know anything about it, but I'm a big crypto fan, I will tell you. I've been that from the beginning, right from the campaign. I'm a believer in crypto, and if we're not going to do it, China's going to do it. It's the way I look at it. It's like AI.
Okay, so he's denying knowing anything about the deal, which is hilarious. I don't believe it, to be honest. And the White House, in a statement, maintained that Witkoff, that's the Middle East envoy, did not participate in the chip negotiations, but did not dispute that he discussed the deal in White House meetings and pushed colleagues to finalize it. So now that this piece has been published by the New York Times, which I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. As much as I hate to admit this, I don't think anyone noticed it. I don't think most people cared. But now people are gonna notice it and people are gonna care because Trump is filing a lawsuit against the New York Times. Now I'll get to that lawsuit in just a minute, but Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm tired of Donald Trump suing the press every time they hurt his feelings. So if you don't ever support that, even if you're on the right and you say, oh yeah, I'm not gonna listen to you. No, poor Donald Trump's the victim and he's been smeared by these folks. First of all, let me explain. I've been smeared by the New York Times and so I have a certain loathing in my heart for the New York Times. I'm not your average progressive, okay? And so, and then by the way, although I might be, because every progressive leader has been smeared by mainstream media, including the New York Times. So this is not about defending them. This is about defending the press and defending their ability to challenge the powerful, most importantly, politicians. So when you have a politician going, I'm not gonna let anyone in the media say anything negative about me. And earlier today, when they were talking about hate speech that Pam Bondi suggested, and good pushback from the right wing about it, and they started backpedaling, good. But when they asked Trump about it, he's like, "Oh, you're asking me a question? That's hate speech." No, it's not. No, it's not. And it's not defamation to do an actual investigative journalism about your crypto, etc. And you have nothing to say that actually shows that they're wrong. But Trump loves to bully people and intimidate people. You want to do it rhetorically in the middle, in terms of politics, and you're pushing Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio around on a debate stage, or even Joe Biden, etc. No problem, no problem. That's politics. That's hardball, right? But when you use the force of the US government that's supposed to look out for the rest of us, you use it to enrich yourself, and then when someone challenges you on that, you go, oh, that's it, I'm gonna sue you, you hurt my feelings. No, that's greasy politicians trying to protect themselves at our expense. So my sense of it, Anna, is, look, I think Trump is gonna go his entire life and escape all accountability.
I do too,
right?
I know, yep.
So there's, in that sense, there's not much justice in the world. So he's now done 1,000 different scams, Trump University, Trump Charity, hired undocumented immigrants on almost every project he did. Even in his first term, they found undocumented immigrants on his golf courses.
Of course.
Right, I can go on for a whole show on that, right? But the Trump kids, they better be careful. Because at some point, someone honest, right or left, right? But someone honest, I hope, is gonna make it into the White House. And when they do, they can look into the Hunter Bidens of the world and and what they did, etc. But they're also gonna look into Don Jr. and Eric, and they're gonna go, now what did you do with your crypto? Let me trace that money, because the money is, now they think because of crypto it's untraceable. I am not good enough at tech to know whether it is or it isn't. But by the way, when you put it into crypto and you say now anybody can pay the president of the United States or his family through untraceable crypto, well then how do you know who's paying them? Oh, that's gotta be against the rules. Whether it's a Republican or Democratic president, we cannot have untraceable money going to the president's family. If it was happening to the Bidens and Hunter Biden's like, oh, I got a great deal with the UAE, but I'm not gonna tell you anything about it, and I'm gonna get billions of dollars, etc. You'd be outraged, and you should be, and same thing here.
Yeah, no, you're totally right about that. And it is a problem when you have potentially the president and the president's family using the office of the presidency to enrich themselves in unsavory ways. But my biggest issue with this story is the fact that Trump wants to retaliate against the press when they're reporting on issues that the American people need to know about. And I say that because you can't have a democratic process unless you have a free press that's informing you about the elite, about our politicians. Now, obviously, there are huge flaws in our media, in the corporate media, in the New York Times itself. But make no mistake about it, this lawsuit that Trump is filing against the New York Times is meant to intimidate them and prevent them from reporting on what he might be doing in the Oval Office, what actions he might be engaging in that could be illegal or unethical. And so let's get to his posts on Truth Social where he revealed that he's suing the New York Times. He says, today, I have the great honor of bringing a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times, one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of our country, becoming a virtual mouthpiece for the radical left Democrat Party.
Well, that's news to me.
So the Times, he says, has engaged in a decades-long method of lying about your favorite president, me, my family business, the America First movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. I am proud to hold this once respected rag responsible, as we are doing with the fake news networks, such as our successful litigation against George Stephanopoulos, ABC, Disney, and 60 Minutes/CBS/Paramount. They practice this long-term intent and pattern of abuse, which is both unacceptable and illegal. The New York Times has been allowed to freely lie, smear, and defame me for far too long, and that stops now. Now, he's also going after specific reporters, including Peter Baker, Michael Schmidt, Suzanne Craig, and Russ Buettner, and he's planning on suing Penguin Random House as well, because they published a book. Craig and Buettner published a book called Lucky Loser, How Donald Trump Squandered His Father's Fortune and Created the Illusion of Success. That hurt Donnie's feelings, so he's suing the publisher for that book. But it's just, I hope the New York Times, I hope Penguin Random House doesn't do what CBS Paramount did in, I mean, they wanted to get cookies from Trump. They needed a deal to be made. And so they were willing to settle, willing to do all sorts of favors for Trump. I don't know if that's gonna be the case with the New York Times. I hope they fight back, because obviously this lawsuit is ridiculous. It's without merit.
Yeah, and so when the New York Times smeared me, I could easily prove what they did wrong. So for example, they claimed I had a history of being anti-Muslim and did not share the fact that I actually am Muslim. That I come from a Muslim background. I mean, that's outrageous. They claim the most outrageous things, that David Duke came on the show and I said he wasn't racist. And people watched the video and it was like, what are you, Dave Rubin? He says the exact opposite. Calls him a racist and an anti-Semite and all these things. Are you guys purposely lying about him? So I got no love, the exact opposite for the New York Times. So, and no, they're not a radical left rag. What they are is pro-establishment, pro-corporate rule, pro-status quo, and they hate outsiders on the left and the right. But you don't sue them for $15 billion when you're a politician. And if you're going to attack them, give us receipts. Tell us how they're wrong. Tell us why you're outraged and you actually didn't take money from a foreign government, etc. And guys, if the crypto is untraceable, then you have to realize he can get money from any government or any person or company to do anything that they want to America. So, and remember, it's even if you love Trump, the president isn't always going to be Trump. So next time a Democrat's in charge, where did they get the crypto money from? Israel or Saudi Arabia or China or North Korea or ExxonMobil or Bob? It doesn't matter. You're allowed to bribe the president through crypto. No, you're not. That's illegal. So I hope to God it is traceable. And that someday that these guys, if they are guilty, that they get caught and brought to justice for financial crimes against the American people.
All right, Cenk reads your comments when we return. Don't miss it.
All right, so Solidarity Works wrote in, Cenk, if you get a chance, please tell us how to find Old School. I'm a member and I used to watch, but now I can't find it when logged in to tyt.com. It should be really straightforward. tyt.com/live, and we go live at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern on Tuesday nights. And if you're logged in, you should be able to see it then, tyt.com/live. Let me know if that doesn't work for you for any reason. Eclectic writes in, on the plus side, if we truly ban hate speech, then Trump will finally have to shut the F up. I mean, to say that Trump hasn't done any hate speech would be absurd, right? And I don't think that that should be illegal. Don't shoot on the goalkeeper says Dave Rubin should eat a peen.
I can't say the word that I want to say.
Hold on. He says, he probably does, Anna. And then he says, hold on, I can make that joke, I'm gay. Okay, so that's him, okay? So.
There's nothing, I have nothing against the consenting peen eating community.
We defend that community with all our might.
We do.
Don't shoot on the goalkeeper also wrote in earlier, the word you're looking for is trans woman, not biological male. She didn't commit the shooting, so show some effing respect. So on that, I would say, the reason why I'm not sure what to call that person is because I'm not convinced that that person is trans. That they loosely refer to that person as trans, but then they've also said, oh, they began a process or they were considering a process. So I have no idea. That's why, not because I'm not trying to respect their wishes.
Yeah, I would argue that's not the most important part of the story, so.
I hear you, but even so, I'm explaining why. Elder Viking on YouTube member section says, speech can be violent, hateful, and still be protected. That's the only speech that needs protection. Popular opinion is never under attack. That's exactly right. Protecting speech is about unpopular speech, not popular. Eduardo Munoz wrote again with being very generous and has an interesting point to make. 25,201 Chinook salmon, 88,195 chum salmon, 2.8 million pounds of halibut, 3.9 million pounds of herring, and 267,225 crabs. All this is caught as bycatch and discarded.
Why?
Okay, that's what they're asking. This fish could be used to feed the children in Gaza, Alaskan natives and others in need. I would like TYT's help to help me feed the children. This is a cause that would unify many people, please. So Eduardo, I don't know much about that. I'll try to look into it a little bit. Thank you for your generosity. But there's so much food we could give the children of Gaza and others who need it. We're just choosing not to. That's what's so tragic about it. And that's why I think all the nations should send in flotillas filled with food to Israel and dare them to attack a ship from France or Norway or Ireland, right? But I love where your heart is. Lord Plagueis 02 says, in South Africa, our wonderful constitution punishes most hate speech. Charlie Kirk would have been arrested for, at the very least, his black pilot's remark. Okay, so if you're on the right, it's another good reason not to have laws against hate speech, right? If you want that exchange of ideas, even if it's offensive, those laws wouldn't help you. And I'm out of time. We'll be right back. All right, back on the actress Cenk and Anna. Also, Kara like Kara just joined. I like that. Thank you. Great to have you. We can't do the show without you guys, so I appreciate everyone who signed up. You could also do it through tyt.com/join, or you could do something free. Just ring the bell, and that helps. Just subscribe for free. That helps. So we appreciate all you guys for doing that. I'm going to be part of the Tucker Carlson show tonight. He's doing his first ever live show. Me, Megyn Kelly, Scott Adams, and Fryer, not named Tuck. And so it's a super serious, heavy show about Charlie Kirk. Anna's gonna do the bonus episode, but don't miss the bonus episode if you're a member and become a member to check it out. I'm not going to be on Tucker's show until a while, right? So you have plenty of time to watch the bonus episode. And there, ironically, she's gonna talk about Tucker going after people who are using Charlie Kirk's death to try to help Israel and how exploitive that is. So I don't want you to miss that, and many other great topics in the bonus episode today. We'll do Operation Joy for our members that we normally do on Tuesdays. We'll do it on the post game tomorrow. Don't miss that. That is, if you've never been part of Operation Joy, it's universally loved. It brings a little bit of light and happiness to everybody's day and week. So check that out tomorrow. Somebody asked about Ken Klippenstein. Great question. He's going to be at the top of the show tomorrow on the Young Turks. The show is live every day, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And Anna's going to interview him. He has some really interesting breaking news about Charlie Kirk's shooter, and you've got to see that. So that'll be at the top of the show at 6 o'clock tomorrow on the East Coast. Lincoln Towns wrote in on Super Chat. I saw you and Anna on Piers Morgan. I was disgusted by the way you were treated. I would consider myself right-wing, and I want to say to you both, especially Anna, I appreciate what you do. And we appreciate you. Thank you for saying that. And Sid wrote in, keeper of treasures and war is an excellent combo. Love you, Anna and Cenk. Happy wedding anniversary, SB Brown. Love you, bro. Okay, well, he got that in as well. So guys, a lot more content coming up with Anna when we return from the break for the members. So hit the join button now. We'll see you there.